All right, it's Alex Mondosian here, of course, Genius Network member, and at the 25K, not 100K yet, but, and you, Joe, I did say yet, but this is what we're about to head into, the big event. And part of the big event is to enroll new members. And so if you're watching this, you are a Genius Network member or a Genius X member. And we have a panel on Saturday morning where we feed the new attendees or participants and have an identity shift going from participant to member. And I made special arrangements with Eunice and with Joe a couple of years ago to have a huge little wooden suitcase with all the goodies inside. So that becomes kind of the positive scarlet letter of assigning someone as a new member. And when you see them walking around with this suitcase, walk up to them and say, welcome. I'm glad you made it here. And, you know, they'll feel welcome because now they've gone from participant to member. So that morning is not where all the sales and persuasion is done. There's a lot of seeding that goes along the way. There's a pre-event that Joe will do, which is a Facebook Live. Joel Weldon and I on day 0, the night before, a Thursday evening, we will do with new attendees at the big event, right? They're the first time they're going there, we'll be seeding the Saturday morning breakfast. And then there'll also be some scoop up presentations from Dean Graziosi and Sean Stevenson on the final day. So we scoop up as many new members as possible. Last year we did well, but this year I think we can eclipse $1 million. And I feel like I have some great support. What I'm learning, he's probably already forgotten. I've never met him. I just met him 5 minutes ago. And that's Jody Williamson. He's on this and I'm recording this. And what city are you at, Jody?
I'm in a suburb of Chicago.
Okay, cool. And so it's a little cooler there. I'm in California. I like his background, but he said he's near a Starbucks, right?
Oh, it's supposed to look like Starbucks. It's my office. So.
All right, there you go. And so I love that background. So we've never met. So this is a meeting for the first time, and we're going to assist each other on enrolling new members at the big event, because that's when most of it is done. So give like a 1 to 2 minute background, Jody, so people know who you are, and then I get to know who you are because I don't know anything else other than what we've discussed. Go for it.
Yeah, so I've been, I own a couple Sandler training businesses in the Chicago area, one in the burbs, one downtown. And so for, 22 years, I've been in the Sandler business. And I started selling when I was like in high school, selling shoes. So I'm a lifelong sales guy, sold my way through college, selling radio airtime, and right out of school, sales and sales management. So my unique abilities are really around selling and sales management, and specifically in the Sandler methodology, and really taking Sandler, which has been around as a methodology for 50 years, and continuing to update it and make it relevant and fit certain situations. And I've been in Genius Network for a few years now, and part of our conversation today was, what can we do as members at the event that would help people discover that, joining Genius Network outside of just the one-time event could be the right fit for somebody.
Yeah, and the methodology that I decided to employ is what my unique ability is enrolling people into the high end without appearing to sell or look too much of like a pimp and being too pushy, because we have reputations on the line. So here's the structure. And so Jody, this is for you and I to discuss. So with Sandler and what David Sandler created, based on what I know about it, is people buy with the heart and then they rationalize with the head. So win the heart and the head will follow. That's the premise. Is that true?
Yeah. And I would say definitely. And, in my book, which I should have to hold up, but it's somewhere. I have some in the gift room at the event. It's called The Contrarian Salesperson. Mm-hmm. And the reason I wrote it is very much like you're describing and starting to describe here, is that, if we act or sound like the traditional salesperson, we're going to get a predictable response of pushback and denial defense wall from the prospects. And I think part of tying it into the annual event, if we look at the psychology, and it's just, think about it. Psych 101 says, if I try to convince you of something, your natural reaction is to pull back and defend or dig your heels in and go into denial. So I think part of what we need to think about is that if we're at the event and we're a current member and we're talking to someone who's there for the one day or for the couple days, and we're trying to see is it the right fit for them, there can be a danger that the harder we try to sell how great it is. Oh, look at you're going to have this mastermind, and you're going to learn marketing, and you're going to, for many people, if it comes too strong, it can create actually the opposite reaction. And I know that many people would say those things because they're authentic, because they're passionate about Genius Network, because they're there. But we do have to have a sense that what's the psychology of where someone's at. Now, the good thing, to your point, Alex, is that because emotion drives a lot of, is pretty much the center point of how people make decisions when it comes to buy something, I think the Genius Network annual event lends itself to emotion. I mean, it's hard to sit in that room and just have your arms crossed and say this. So I think we have the benefit there to have that emotional component kind of built in, that if we were selling widgets, it's a little harder to get the emotion going.
That's right. And my intention for this meeting, and it's a little different because we know someone else is watching, and so we would probably doing some more time wasting banter back and forth, but we want to make the best of this so that you see what a first meeting looks like between members assisting Joe and giving back without keeping score. That kind of fits into this, the Sandler methodology, fits into mine, which is seeding through storytelling, seeding, S-E-E-D-I-N-G. Seeding through storytelling is the new selling. So never really closing, but letting them close themselves. So the way the reason why I wanted to do this through a recording is so that we could have a bunch of seeds outside the room that is intentional, authentic, and seeing why they don't want to continue. And if they want to continue, why they would continue. If you know those two whys, then you really have a recipe, and everyone has different recipes. So here's the way we do the setup for the morning panel. So there's 6 panelists, and there's always a surprise. Someone walks up and they feel comfortable being the 7th or 8th, but the goal is to have 6 panelists. And there are 6 major key objections that we want to not handle, but to obliterate. And the way I do it is I'm the MC, I'm the host. The panel's not up yet. And then I tell my story and I say, I'm Alex Mandossian, and I don't know if I'm a stranger to you, but I go back to 1995 in digital marketing, which makes me before Google, BG. My unique ability is having my students become my teachers. And I name a few examples: Ryan Dice, Russell Brunson, blah, blah, blah. And I say, I'll tell you why I earned the right to be the MC in a moment. But why are you here? And then I'll have a list of why they're here, because we know from the previous day. So I'm giving them unarguable proof. And this is in the first 5 to 10 minutes. And then I tell them that I was one of the first 10 people Joe approached over 10 years ago to join Genius Network. And my response was, what? I've introduced you to 20% of those people. Why am I going to pay you $25K for people I already know? And that was my first objection. The other excuse was, well, I don't have the time to make meetings. I'm so busy. I got my own masterminds. A third was, my business doesn't really apply. A fourth was, I don't want other people to steal my ideas. I'm going to bring you the best ideas and have people steal it and see it in the marketplace if they execute better than me. Another one was, well, how am I insured of an ROI? And I make this point when I'm the host. I say, look, it's never about money at Genius Network, because they've already paid 10 grand to be at that event. Okay, so they don't owe another 25, they owe another 15. Some paid 5, so they owe another 20, depending on how they came in. So it's never about the money. It's like, how am I insured an ROI? And my response is, you're not, but you are assured of a guarantee with your money back. And as far as I know, maybe one or no one has done it. I'll leave it with Joe. And so we go through these, and then each person in the panel has that objection as well. So they tell their story. And then I say, well, what would you say to someone who says that, hey, B2B, I'm B2B, so it doesn't apply, and I don't know anyone here. What would you say? And then I'd let them eviscerate the objection through their own languaging. So we're getting them not once, but twice. And then I make a trial close, and I say, anyone thinking about joining? They raise their hand. Anyone ready to join now? I always get someone. I go, okay, well, I'll come to you, because we don't wait for the ship to come to harbor. We go out to the ship. We swim to the ship at Genius Network. This is not a mastermind. It's a network, blah, blah, blah. I'm going 100 miles an hour, but that's what we do. And then they start standing up like popcorn. I hand them the microphone. I go, why are you joining? And they tell me. And then we get some whys they're not ready, we'll get some whys there. And we let people at the tables, we have Genius Network people at the tables talking to them, not to persuade them to say yes, but to just work with them in understanding and clarifying what Genius Network has done for them personally, and not really selling. So that's the format. We go back into the room before lunch on Saturday. Dean Graziosi does a final scoop up. Who wasn't at the breakfast, right? Who was at the breakfast and joined, and they stand up, we go, woo! Who didn't join? I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand. And then he does a little enrollment, and then they go to the back and we scoop up more. And then finally, Sean Stevenson at the end of day 2 says, hey man, this is why you need to be here. And by that time, if they don't say yes, we're not going to get them for the bonus day. So that's the format, Jody. Pop holes in it. I'm ready to discuss objections. No,
I think it's good. And what I'm hearing there, third-party stories are so powerful. And one of the center points, a couple center points that I was thinking of as you were speaking there is that one is that, the 70-30 rule that we recommend is listening 70% of the time, talking 30. And that's kind of flipped from most traditional salespeople who are, let me tell you how great our features and benefits are. So I think you're right on target. And I do see social proof working in there when people are standing up, and then you get a little bit of public pressure. And I think the beauty of having people speak as to why they're joining is gonna really go to some of the pains that they're trying to alleviate. The thing I would like to think also about is that what are the pains that people have? I mean, you went through the objections, like, and I know the classic one is, and we get it in our training business too, is like, oh, I don't have the time. And it's like, okay, so if your kid needed surgery and it was on a certain day, could you make it somehow? Well, yeah, you'd clear your schedule. So it's not that you can't make the time. It might not be a priority, which is okay. If it's not a priority, it's fine, but let's deal with the real issue. It's not that you don't have the time, it's just you don't see it as important enough to move your schedule around.
Let me jump in on that point. So that's exactly the way we go from time to priority. So then my question to the group on day 0 is, what has to happen in order to make this one of the top 10 priorities in your life, right up there with, spouse, if you have one, ex-spouse, if you have one, kids, school and everything else? What must happen? And they're not used to hearing that question. And once they hear other people say it, right, who have the courage, the goal is to make it one of the top 10, hopefully top 5, but top 10 priorities, so that they will make the meetings and they clear their calendar to attend. Have you found that to work for you guys as well?
Yeah. But I think it keeps coming back to pain. And if we look at going back to the emotion and the psychology around it, I mean, in June, I did a 10-minute talk for the group, and it was about the psychology of pain and what's the most, what's the motivator that generates the greatest action. So if we look at pain and fear, I mean, think of, we all have insurance, and we all buy insurance out of fear, because most insurance we buy we're not going to use, but we all want it, and we all feel like we need it, because if we do, so it's like pain and fear are the strongest motivators to get people to take action. Below that on the hierarchy are things like pleasure and then curiosity. And the challenge is, sometimes you get somebody at an event like this who's all, excited, and this is really cool, but they're really kind of in curiosity mode. I really think that even when people join Genius Network and they think it's because of pleasure, which is below the hierarchy of motivators, below pain and fear, I really believe if you peel back a few layers of the onion, there's probably some pain. In fact, there is some pain. So when someone says, I want to be better at marketing, that's a pleasure motivation, right? I think it's a marketing idea, or it's a good network, it's a good mastermind. That's not the issue. The real issue is they're not growing the business like they want to. They're lonely because they don't have a mastermind group. They feel like they're missing out on something. Their friends in business are succeeding more than they are, and they're not looking for that missing link. I mean, the more we can bring it back to the real issue, but rarely will people lead with that. It's always like, well, yeah, this is interesting, and yeah, I like the vibe, and yeah, I really got some things out of this. And the more we can get people, because if we can get them to really see why they're doing it, and see about the pain they're looking to alleviate and get rid of, then we have people even more motivated and committed, and they are just a whole different place.
Here's what I got. Yeah, here's what I got from that lesson. That's very insightful. I'm so glad we did this, because that was a nice inflection point for me. Most people, even though they're very good business people and they know how to network, they talk about what life is like today with Genius Network, and no one gives a shit, right? If you can go back to what life was like before,
That's it.
and your skepticism and your suspicions and what was preventing you from saying yes, and the evolution of the result is more important than the result itself, because there's no story in the result. But in that evolution, if you can go back and remember your origin story to come back into Genius Network. I love the ones who quit for a while and then come back. Mine, the reason I have the right is I said no for over 10 years. And so not only did I have I lost return on investment, but I have a cost of inaction. So I talk about COI versus ROI, and that's my big push. And so I like to talk about, hey, this is what life is like today, and this is what I got at Genius Network, but it wasn't always that way. And that's a nice little template. This is what it's like today. That's point B, but it wasn't always that way. And if you tell them where you were as a member prior to coming in, and you can go back into that frame. First of all, two things happen. Number one, you appreciate Joe and Genius Network more and everyone else. And secondly, you're actually doing justice to the person, because that's where they are right now. They're not where you are. And that there's this bridging of the gap, emotional bridging between pain and fear, as Jody just said. That's my impression, where we need to be better testimonials for people and not just talk about the good stuff, talk about the way it was and what's evolved. And it's not perfect yet, but man, Genius Network is like, hey, I'm on a trapeze and this is the safety net. So I want to go in that direction. Is that something that you can support, Jody?
Yeah, definitely. And if you think about even some health related procedures people do, or even like weight loss. Think of when they show the before and after, right? They show the after, but they always show the before, because the before was the pain, the after is the pleasure. And just about every program you see, it has some form of that in it. And they're really just playing. If they just showed how great people look today, it's not as powerful as showing the pain. So what you're describing is the same concept. So I think if we can build more of that into it, it's not just, I look how great it is, but and really get some, and people like the social proof. They can relate to those stories. Like, here's what was happening. My marketing, I was doing stuff, or I wasn't marketing. I'm just picking marketing. There's so many other things Genius Network does. But, in our world, we weren't really marketing. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know where to start. We didn't know how to measure it. We didn't know who to talk to. And so, and I think the more we can take it back, and whatever the pains are, and then we take it to the future and what it looks like, I just think that's more powerful.
Cool. Sandra, come on over here for a sec. I want a lunch reservation with you on day one, Jody, no matter what the hell we're doing, okay, so that we make plans. I'm going to say no to other people so we can have our first lunch.
This is a public commitment. I like this.
That is. I'm doing it so people don't ask for day one. But Sandra will be on one side. This is my partner,
Hi,
Sandra.
Jody.
Sandra, how you doing?
She's coming all the way from Australia, so that's how much Genius.
That's commitment.
Right? And do you have, she doesn't have her sweatshirt. She has a Pete Vargas coat instead. But anyway, let's do that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to end this recording, and can't wait to see you. We're arriving what day?
This for Thursday?
Thursday
We're
afternoon.
arriving Thursday,
Okay.
yeah.
So Friday, let's have our lunch. The panel is Saturday morning.
Perfect. That
Okay.
totally works.
All right. Well, say hi to Mike for me, and it was good finally to meet you, and let's see what we can do together.
Sounds good.
All right. See you.
Okay, bye now.
Bye.